and we're back again with the solo side quest episode 2. It's your boy Seth from the Lonely Stoners podcast, but today's episode's going to be a bit different. Like I mentioned before, this is a solo side quest episode. We did one episode of this before. It was a few weeks ago, was when Evan was unable to join me for an episode. Similar case again today. But Evan will be back next time we do an episode. Next episode will likely be a full-fledged Lonely Stoners episode. And the solo side quest, doesn't normally last for too long because, as we all know, talking to yourself with a mic isn't the easiest thing to do. But let's kick it off. Of course, we got the fallout from UFC Tampa, where we saw Joaquin Buckley beat Colby Covington in what was a pretty great performance from Buckley. He really pushed the pace, which is hard to do on a guy like Covington, and was landing some big shots on him and ultimately led to the third round doctor stoppage, which probably was a bit immature. Not immature, premature rather. Because it wasn't that bad. It was noticeably, affecting Kobe, but it wasn't the most insane cut, us MMA fans have ever seen. But to talk about the card in a wider sense, the card will go down as probably one of the best cards, probably of the year, but maybe ever. Of course, it hasn't got the star quality of a UFC 300 or whatever, or even a regular pay-per-view. But in terms of quality of fights, we saw a lot of finishes in this card, and that counts for a lot with us MMA fans because sure we like the big names, but give us the excitement, give us the excitement, give us those stoppages, give us those finishes. But yeah, of course, Manel Kape, what a performance from him. Was the sort of performances that we really don't see that often in MMA, and the sort of performance I really like to see because it was, flashy, showboating. We don't often see performances like that in MMA due to there being so many variables in MMA. In boxing, you'll see those sorts of performances where there'll be, a lot more showboating, dancing around, hands low. But in MMA, fighters often don't want to risk it because you dance around like Manel Kape, you could likely get caught with a head kick, get punched, elbowed, knees taken down. There's a lot more variables, but that's why when it happens, it makes it even greater. Manel Kape really put on a performance that will be remembered for a long time, I think. Very memeable, went viral, but above all, he got the win. He got the win. He's back in the win column, and I think he was ranked number 9 going into that fight. So I'd be curious to see where he is now. I mean, the rankings have probably been updated, but I'm not looking at no flyweight rankings. But yeah, big win for Manel Kape. But back to the main event with Buckley and Covington. This being another loss for Covington, it does sort of beg the wider question, in my opinion. And it was something I was actually looking into after this fight, after this result. I'm thinking, Covington's actually lost quite a lot of fights. Now that I'm thinking about it, in terms of his wins, they're not incredibly impressive, if you ask me. Dos Anjos, a good win, but a career lightweight and not the youngest guy. To be fair, it was a few years ago, but Dos Anjos is a good win to have, and he won the interim belt with that. Damian Maia, an old man. Masvidal, an old man with, 1 foot out the game at that point. I think, to be fair, it was a personal fight for Masvidal, but look at Masvidal's career. Beating Masvidal, something that 15, 16 other guys have done. Masvidal's a big name because of the knockout, but we look at him for what he is in terms of his style. I can understand him potentially being tricky for certain guys, but if you want to be a top guy, you need to be handling Masvidal relatively easily. And to be fair to Covington, he did do that. But yeah, so Covington, he beats RDA, beats Maia, beats Masvidal, but he loses twice to Usman, and then gets dominated by Leon Edwards, and now loses to Joaquin Buckley. It's not looking good for him, and really with Usman, yeah, the first fight was a stoppage, a 5th round stoppage, and the second fight was close, but that second fight where I'm like, it's close. I'm thinking if Covington is able to go to a close decision with someone who's widely regarded as one of the most dominant champions in modern MMA, then if he can be competitive with him, then surely Covington can push on and be quite good in the division. But to be honest, doesn't really seem to be the case. But and these long layoffs and his age aren't going to help with that either at all. But yeah, Carl Covington's had an interesting career, but I'm starting to think maybe he's a bit overrated, and maybe it's a bit poetic that he had Chael Sonnen in his corner, because Chael Sonnen, similar to what Colby is becoming, he's a choker. You know, Colby's had 3 world title fights, lost every single one of them, and now main evented a fight night, the last card of the year, and bottled it as well. The same exact thing that Chael would do, as Chael has had multiple big fights, multiple world title fights, and bottled it every time. Excuse me. Yeah, bottled it every time. So it was a bit poetic that the ultimate the first bottle job, then sort of passed the torch to the next big mouth bottle job. And that being said, of course, Kobe's performances against Usman, they were good and they were competitive, but I'm more inclined to suggest that these were competitive due to, like Dana says, styles make fights. You know, both of them have got a high pedigree of wrestling, even though I think stylistically, each of them as wrestlers are a bit different, but in terms of pedigree, are both highly regarded wrestlers. So that sort of cancelled each other's out, and then we just saw a pretty mid kickboxing fight, and then to be fair to Usman, he got the better of him. But again, if you're getting outstruck by Usman over the course of a fight, Usman's not a super elite striker, so you're getting outstruck by him. That alone has to beg some questions. But in terms of Colby Covington ever becoming a world champion, or probably ever even becoming a contender again, losing to Buckley probably is the nail in his coffin in terms of his career, to be honest. I don't see Kobe beating anyone in the top 10. I don't see him beating anyone in the top 10. His best chance of winning would be probably the guy who just got knocked out by Buckley himself in Wonder Boy, maybe. Even then, I wouldn't. That's not an easy fight for Kobe. Maybe someone. I don't know. I'd have to look at the rankings. I'm not got the rankings in front of me, but I can't think of anyone off the top of my head in the top 10 that Kobe would beat. Maybe in the top 15. I don't know who's ranked 11th to 14th. I don't know. So maybe he could beat some of those guys, but at that point, you're a guy who's fighting guys that are ranked 11th to 15th. You're not in world title conversations ever again, bro. And where he's had these long layoffs and these losses, I don't know. I don't know what's next for Kobe. I mean, I'm seeing he's doing okay in his poker tournaments. He was in the World Series of Poker, I'm sure, and I love poker. It's one of those things that recently I've just fallen in love with, and just playing hand after hand. Um, but to be fair to Kobe, I'm sure he got a respectable finish in the World Series of Poker, I think, or World Series or World Poker Tour, one of those two. And he actually placed, and then was able to make some money off of how highly he placed. So respect him. And those poker tournaments are very, very difficult. Very difficult. Don't get it twisted. Don't think anyone could just. I think anyone can just enter these tournaments, but not just anyone is placing, and not just anyone is making any money off of these as well. So fair play to Kobe for that. I think maybe that's probably where his future lies. He's got a big mouth, so that will get him. To be fair, his big mouth, and he has still got some ability that will probably keep him somewhat relevant for a bit. But don't hold your breath, Kobe. To be honest, bro, don't hold your breath, because you're not going to be relevant for much longer, because you've lost to the top names in the division, and you'd get cooked by a majority of the top 10. So you should probably, just live stream and playing poker, and probably just start a podcast with Chael Sonnen, to be honest. Would probably be the best bet. Um, So yeah, that's my thoughts from UFC Tampa, particularly on Colby Covington. Buckley, Buckley is a sleeper pick for Fighter of the Year. And when we next have the next episode of the Lonely Stoners podcast with Evan, Buckley's going to be in that conversation because he's really turned around his career from a guy who was, I think, 5-4 at middleweight. From a guy who's 5-4 at middleweight, not really doing much. To be fair, his losses were against respectable guys, but again, similar to Covington, if you're going to beat anything in that division, the guys that Buckley was losing to, you have to beat. So now I think Buckley lost to Chris Curtis. There's no shame in losing, and Emanov, who's fighting Adesanya. There's no shame in these losses because these are good guys to lose to. But if you lose to these guys, you're probably not going to be ever ranked top 5, ever going to be pushing for a world title contendership, which is what Buckley wants. He's a young guy, he's physically gifted, and he's a good fighter. He is a good fighter, and we're seeing that at welterweight, where I think his muscular stature almost makes him feel smaller than he is. But he's 5'10". He's not a small guy. He's taller than the likes of Tyron Woodley. He was 5'9", and at one point was dominating in the division. Buckley's taller than him, so Buckley's been on a great run this year. And like I said, when we do the Lonely Stoner Podcast Awards, Buckley will be in the conversation for Fighter of the Year, to be honest, or maybe Breakout Fighter of the Year. But we'll have that conversation with Evan when the time comes. But yeah, that was my initial thoughts from UFC Tampa. Obviously tonight we've got Usyk v Fury 2, which is a gigantic fight, and also has Lonely Stoner Podcast fight a Boxer of the Year award implications. Because if Usyk wins, then again he's in that conversation. I mean, to be honest, even if Tyson Fury wins, Tyson Fury could potentially be in that conversation because Tyson Fury is a guy who lost a close fight. People are really forgetting how close that fight was. I think both guys had really great moments. I probably would have given the edge to Usyk, to be fair. I think it was scored correctly, but it wasn't a robbery. It wasn't like Tyson Fury got blown out. It was competitive the entire way. Of course, Tyson Fury got rocked, but he didn't get dropped. And majority of heavyweights in that position, they're getting dropped. They're getting put on their ass. But Tyson Fury was able to stay up and is able to carry on fighting like Tyson Fury does. That being said, the way Tyson Fury was talking about this fight, initially it did sort of give me hope because often in these positions, fighters will be like, I lost, I'm changing everything. Tyson Fury was like, no, I lost the fight, but it was close, it was a split decision, and he understands in this point of his career, he's not going to be completely changing his style. And he said there's going to be minor tweaks to game plans, which is what is necessary. In a fight like this, when you're against two guys that are, at this level, just savants of the game and have such high boxing IQ, what it really comes down to is game plan implementation, right? So when I was hearing Tyson Fury say that, it was good to hear, and I'm thinking, okay, well, if that's the case and Tyson Fury is approaching it with a level mind, then he could win this fight. But then I rewatched the fight, and if Usyk is able to do the same things again, then I could see Usyk winning it again. And that is probably where I'm leaning. I'm probably leaning towards another Usyk decision because Usyk done what I think you need to do if you're going to beat Tyson Fury, and that's committing to the body, throwing combos to the body, applying pressure, and then occasionally switching up to the head. If you try and fight Tyson Fury on the front foot and you're just head hunting, you're going to miss, and he's going to make you pay, and then he's going to box his way to a decision. Whereas Usyk is throwing the jabs to the body, throwing the straights to the body, keeping Tyson Fury honest, and then getting Tyson Fury worried about the body shots. Because we're seeing Tyson Fury, Tyson Fury's not a skinny boy. Tyson Fury's got some meat on his bones, so there's big targets for Usyk to hit there. So if Usyk is able to continually, like he did in the first fight, commit to the body, get Tyson Fury worried about the body, and then switch to the head with a hook, or with an overhand, or with a big shot to the head, then he can get Tyson Fury wobbling again, and who knows, maybe this time Maybe this time it'll be worse than just standing 8 count. Maybe this time it'll be a full blown stoppage. Wouldn't surprise me, but it's going to be a super close fight. But my pick is going to be Usyk for this fight. I haven't put any money on it, to be fair, because it's too close of a fight for me to do that, in my opinion. So I haven't put any money on it. But yeah, I think it'll be a close fight. It'll be a good one. I'm about to get faded right now. So if I'm awake, I'll watch it. But if I'm going to be faded down a hoe, I'm probably not even going to be up for it and probably will just catch the highlights the next day. That being said, it's been me from the Lonely Stoners podcast. Oh, well, not even the podcast this time. It's a solo side quest, episode 2. It's been your boy Seth, and I'm out. Peace.